This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You are tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Special edition of The Baseline. It is hot in these NBA streets. NBA trade deadline is done, over with. But out of the ashes rises the hype, the chaos, the anarchy that takes place. And ready to talk about it, dig into it in this special edition of The Baseline. My man, 50 grand, www.shawsports.net, Bitcoin the PNC. My man, Mr. Warrenshaw, ripping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Holla at me, my brother. Tell me, man, have you knocked the dust off? Have you come out of the shell after the bombs that were being dropped all over the place, man? It felt like, you know what I'm saying, like Armageddon. You know what I'm saying? Did you check to make sure you still had a pulse once all of this was said and done? That's what the sentiment is out there in the NBA streets.
I definitely agree. The NBA does bomb atomically. They let us know from jump last week that stuff was going to get popping, and I will say it fizzled out a little bit towards the end. You know, the deadline day deals weren't as apocalyptic, I think, if you will. So it gave us some time to process as the different deals were kind of coming in. But there have been some obviously major moves and a lot of trade rumors as well too, that I think is going to signify conversations that need to be had, some mending of fences that may need to happen between some teams and some players when they hear that their name was bantered about and then didn't get moved. So the trade deadline was as much about as who did and who didn't get moved, and the kind of the fallout from all of that as well.
Yeah, and I know that like our fans and listeners are sitting here saying, yo, how come our peoples are not weighing in on this? Well, slow your roll. We are very much, you know what I'm saying, ready to lay it all out. And in order for us to be able to do that, my brother, right, it just couldn't be only ourselves. I mean, we also have family that's going to be joining us in a few moments. You ready to kind of, like, you know what I'm saying, weigh in, lean in pretty heavily with everything that is going on. An exciting episode of the Baseline NBA podcast. And with this in a few, we're going to have our man hosting the Late Night Lake Show. Our man, Ricky Barnes, is joining us. And then also, man, one of our OGs, man, been rocking with him since, you know, way back, has always been a part of it, the family. He has a happening show that's going on right now, part of the 19 Media Group family, heavy in the paint. Our man, Gerald Brown, will be joining us as well, too. So we've got a roundtable conversation ready to pop off for us to dig in on everything that's been happening regarding the NBA trade deadline. So lock in, buckle up, grab a drink. You know what I'm saying? You may need a little something a little heavy. I don't know. With everything that's going on with the heavy hitters we got on this show, you're going to probably need to, you know what I'm saying, be in relaxed mode with everything we're going to be hitting you off with. And do not go anywhere. This is going to be a great episode to discuss. But first, let's remember that while the NBA won the week ahead, come Sunday, it's all about the big game. And since the big game is almost here, it is now or never. So do not miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. For the big game, Patrick Mahomes only needs 1 times passing yard for you to win 1 time square. Check out Prize Picks for up-to-date big game player projections, like will Saquon Barkley rush for more than 112.5 yards? Will Jalen Hurts pass for more than 215.5 yards? Will Travis Kelce have more than 62.5 receiving yards? These are the types of selections you can make on Prize Picks. Check out the promo tab and to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Let me say that again. You can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Just download the app and use the code CLNS, as Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Prize Picks puts the members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Remember, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Coming up, Lee, Warren Shaw, our brothers, Ricky, Gerald, hop on, talking NBA trade deadline. Do not go anywhere. Well. We are here. It has arrived. I know I can speak for my man Show. We are so excited to have this special edition of the Baseline NBA podcast alongside of us to have the big roundtable discussion of everything that's kind of been happening in the flurry of, the 72 hours or so. It's just awesome to be able to have this conversation with this week, man. We got our boy. You heard him. He's been doing big things, always covering the Los Angeles Lakers like no other. Host of the Late Night Lake Show, our man Ricky Barnes, and one of the OGs that's been rolling with us almost since day one, man. He's always doing this thing with Sirius Radio, and you can also catch him with the 19 Media Group family with his show Heavy in the Paint. Our man Gerald Brown. Welcome, fellas. Thank you for joining in. You knew we had to make space. We made more than enough room so you guys can flex your elbows on all of the nonsense that's been going on so far with the NBA.
Great to be
Appreciate
here,
you having us, man.
All right, so let's get right into it. I first want to hear from you on this one, Gerald. Everybody is obviously still stuck on stupid with the trade with AD and Luka Dončić, and I know we'll get to that part of it. I know a lot of people are also stuck on the Jimmy Butler move, but I want you to kind of weigh in your take. Did the NBA truly win with the flurry of trades that have happened in the last 48 hours? Did the NBA truly win this week? Or are we just more still stuck and enamored on the idea about what has happened with the first domino that fell regarding that trade?
I think it's a combination of both. It was a week that obviously builds up to the Super Bowl. But, it's also, look, no one expected Luka Dončić to be moved. But I think it's a combination of both. But the downside of this is, what type of momentum will the league be able to carry over for next weekend when the NBA All-Star Weekend takes place and they're introducing something that is unique, it's new, but the biggest thing is, will the players show up? But more importantly, how hard will they play? So it's a great time right now for the league to be feeling good and all the attention, stolen a little thunder from the NFL. But can they carry it over next weekend? That's when it's really going to tell.
What are your thoughts?
I agree, Gerald. Gerald, let me chime in real quick. I mean, that's something that for me, I've been trying to figure out, with all the machinations, and I'm not sure. Like we get caught up in hyperbole a lot. This is the greatest trade deadline ever, and like all this stuff. And I'm like, all right. I mean, it's like we're such prisoners of the moment. So, but without diverting too much, I want to kind of now throw it to Ricky. Do you, as a Laker fan, was this the greatest trade deadline ever? Or even from an NBA fan standpoint, how do you feel that is? And, how can the NBA maybe carry some of this momentum?
I mean, first and foremost, this is always one of the craziest, most anticipated times in the NBA season, right? This time, free agency. And it feels like we never get the crazy NBA trade deadline. Maybe we'll get some a couple days earlier, and then the trade deadline day, it's just like, all right, well, that was something. This started crazy. It continued to be crazy. Hall of Fame players were just traded across the board mid-season. First team All-NBA players were traded for each other for the first time in regular season history. This is not a hyperbole. This is the craziest NBA trade deadline we have experienced. And I think it's going to take for the dust to settle and for us to actually go through the number of all-stars and all-NBA potential players that actually switch jerseys this last 72 hours. We're going to be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, this was crazy.
I'm gonna throw something out here because I think, to your point, the trades certainly set the table, right? But I think what also resonated is what the intentions were by the organizations that were involved in the trades, right? Mm-hmm. Because I still think that for some of them, we're trying to figure out what their modus operandi really is. Is it about trying to win that championship? Is it about, you know what I'm saying, being one of the heavy hitters when it's all said and done, and we line up those 16 essential teams that are going to be playing and competing for an NBA championship? And then you're looking at some of these organizations and you're kind of saying, is this what money moves? Is this, you know, you're talking about rebuild and you're just kind of flying under the radar. So you're giving people like this perception that we're really trying to do something, but we really ain't trying to do something. That to me, I think is what kind of speaks out. And I'll give you an example. When we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, and see, I know everybody is going to be looking at the Butler trade. Everyone is going to be looking about the way that Nico Harrison was explaining how they still are in a win now mode, and they think that the better fit will be Kyrie and AD. I'm looking at what we knew for the last 3 years with regards to Khris Middleton and the fact that the Bucks did pull the trigger in moving Khris Middleton. But in doing it, you went and you got Kyle Kuzma, right? Like, I'm not saying Kyle Kuzma is it or not it, but I am saying with all of those names that were being bantered out there, if you knew you were trying to move Khris Middleton, right? Like, he was that piece that was going to have to go, right? I'm thinking you're getting a guy that truly can prove himself, or at least give the semblance that they can prove themselves with Jonas and with Lillard, if you know that the Bucks are going to be one of the top 3, maybe top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. That is a big dice you're rolling, moving off of Khris Middleton and then throwing in a Kyle Kuzma who's never even sniffed the playoffs before to go in there and do what was clearly lacking at that position.
Well, he hasn't stepped in a while.
That's champion. That's
NBA champion. Yeah,
Kyle Kuzma.
That's bubble ring.
Put some respect on Big Kuz's name. Playing off of AD and LeBron.
I'm sorry.
All good, but you right at the end, you pushed me off the clip by not calling him an NBA playoff. But no, I'm with you.
Bad basketball in Washington Wizards land. It's been a couple years, bro. I'm just saying.
No, and it's nasty. Okay. But to that point, where I was right, I was walking right with you into the point that Dame and Giannis, their front office with Milwaukee, probably looked at Kyle Kuzma and was like, you know what? It worked with LeBron and AD. This is a thing over here with 2 superstars. Kyle knows how to play his role, shut the hell up, and make some timely shots. Maybe this will work over here. I completely agree with you that the value of Kyle Kuzma for Khris Middleton after these last couple of years is kind of crazy to me. But, I can see kind of the wild line of thinking that Milwaukee went down with going to get championship Kuz back.
I like the championship Kuz aspect. Gerald, kind of go to you real quick. So since we kind of started like in the middle of the deadline and not kind of like the high points, if you will, but Milwaukee's standpoint in general, I look at that deal and I'm like, if Ingram was available, maybe I go that route, and instead of a Kuzma, a little bit more versatile or whatever the case may be. Maybe you think Ingram has too much of a role to play. Maybe he wouldn't accept like truly being a third string guy there. He's having problems in New Orleans as it is, but I think that's a better long-term fit. What did you think about Milwaukee? Were they just making moves to make moves, or do you think they're fundamentally better than they are right now? They also got Jericho Sims and a couple other ancillary parts as well too.
Yeah, one thing that I've started doing is looking at a deal and then just start looking at the different moving parts and trying to figure out, okay, which direction? It's kind of like the breadcrumbs. Like when you look at Milwaukee, you got Dame making a ton of money. They acquired him. Like, let's go back prior to the acquiring Dame. Their whole mindset was really, trying to figure out if they were going to be able to re-sign Giannis. And at that point in time, they had let Budenholzer go. Look, they had won a championship. They're a mid-market team. And it was setting up to say, hey, look, let Giannis go. He delivered a championship. We're not mad at all. Kind of reminiscent what Kareem did there in the Big O in Milwaukee many years ago. So now you bring in Dame, and then all of a sudden things shift. And obviously they've made this adjustment. But I think right now when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks and management, guys are really, and teams are really a little leery about these luxury taxes and these aprons that are put in place. And you're looking at this team that when they played minus Giannis in the playoffs against Indiana, their biggest Achilles heel has been really being able to have guard teams, those fast teams. Khris Middleton aged right in front of us. Brook Lopez is aging right in front of us. I think, honestly, with this Kyle Kuzma deal, it might set up something that perhaps maybe in the offseason they start to revisit and say, hey, look, we're going to go in a different direction, try to rebuild on the fly. And obviously, they've moved Khris Middleton. Let's see how things play out. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try to move Dame as well as Jonas and say, hey, look, let's reset the market in terms of obviously getting rid of a lot of these high-priced players, and then essentially just try to start all over. Because right now, where they are, you know, on paper, it doesn't really look like you would consider them to be one of the top teams in the East. I think it's more of, you know, reputation than anything. When you look at them, it's just nah. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's more moves to come.
I'm sorry, Shaw. You were setting the tenor. I took us to the middle.
All right. Well, not a problem. I got you. Well, I'll just say this, you know, to kind of close the loop on that, you know, with some of the moves that Milwaukee did, it is an aspect of salary cap stuff too. So as Cal was alluding to, sometimes it's the machinations to say it's like, all right, well, we still kind of want to play in the sandbox, but we also got to think about the future. And so now it's the aspect, hey, they'll save some money by losing Middleton. I think the salary is like roughly, they'll save like another $4 million or whatever the case may be. They get below, and I know the luxury tax and some of those machinations, and they get a guy who's relatively healthy, but is also going to have expiring, I guess, in a year from now as well too. So I get the move. They're large on the front court side, but is it a championship level move? I'm not quite sure about that in that aspect. So why don't we now switch it over and let's not bury the lead too much longer. We've kind of danced around a little bit, but I'm going to go right to you, Ricky. We were talking off air, and we know Lakers exceptionalism is a real thing. Your thoughts as a podcaster, analyst, but also a fan of one of the more storied franchises in the NBA, how they were able to acquire Luka. And then, I mean, that's like they already robbed Peter, if you will. And then all of a sudden, they somehow find a way to get Mark Williams, who nobody else knew was available either. Rob Pelinka, he's had some dark days, but I think he's shining right now. Your thoughts on the Lakers move so far?
Yeah, by far one of the more surreal experiences that Saturday night when the news broke. I mean, I think you guys probably have already talked about it, but the first reaction of disbelief, and then the follow-up tweet by Shams, and then the reality of this trade is actually happening. I think even inside the NBA world, reporters, people, beat reporters that are following the teams, nobody knew. Nobody knew. And now you get the stories afterwards. And it really does feel like Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison were just locked in together. They wanted to figure out a trade. And it feels like Nico initiated this conversation and got the ball rolling. You know, this all started over a coffee chat somewhere in Dallas. It sounds like the beginning of a romance novel, but it somehow manifested into Anthony Davis no longer in a Lakers uniform. And, you know, if you were to cast any spell that ended up you losing an all-NBA player and a shoe-in Hall of Famer, top 75 player of all time in AD, it had to bring back a big boy. And my God, like, the one for the ages, the transaction for the ages. Like you said, Rob Pelinka, he knows how to chase superstars, right? That's one thing that he has proven to do. But, you know, I think this is just another testament to not just in basketball, but in life, that relationships matter. They, you know, these sweet stories about them all traveling the world together while they were both representatives at Nike and Rob was representing Kobe. They had deep relationships, man. And so I get all of the skepticism of how a trade of this magnitude could happen, and Luka can switch teams without a bidding war for the ages to pop up. But I'm just gonna have to call a spade and say that Rob figured out the right one to tap on their pockets, and that there's no other way that I could rationalize a trade of this magnitude to go down. So
yeah. So do you genuinely think, Gerald, that the Lakers truly won this, right? Or is Nico Harrison, you know, betting on black with Kyrie and AD with the way that the Dallas Mavericks are positioned still right now, because everybody still believes that, look, they can easily come out of the Western Conference, right? And no sweat off their brow. It's just a matter of their best players shining brightest to whoever's coming out of the East, right? So that to me, and I find that to be interesting, because now we're talking a little bit more than just what the numbers speak to, as more as the combination of the star athletes and the type of team that they've got, at their disposal.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, you just go back, and I think Ricky hit it right on the head when he said relationships really matter. I mean, when you look at Dallas, I think clearly, look, they have now, you think, 3 bigs, right? And essentially they can go big with Lively when he comes back. Obviously, you're adding in Gafford and AD, and obviously with Clay there and Kyrie. I think the biggest thing from what I heard from the inner circles of the NBA, it was just that the ownership group that's down there in Dallas left and trusted, Nico to say, hey, look, can we invest that type of money into Luka Dončić? Is it going to deliver NBA championships? And he was on the hook. And look, if it doesn't work out, obviously Nico would be out of a job. So in some regards, look, they got value back. I think the sting is still somewhat there, but I think it'll clearly wear off. Kyrie is still obviously Kyrie Irving. But when I look at the Lakers also, too, I think 2 things, and this is one of the things we also got to mention, too. There's probably another move or 2 behind the scenes that ultimately shifts this franchise in the Lakers. And number one, yeah, it was interesting because at first I was saying, well, he could have got a better package if he would open it up and they would have got a treasure trove for Luka Dončić. But the biggest thing is Brand Jordan and Nike. Nico did them a favor. Now you put Brand Jordan, aka Nike, and another big international global star in a major market in LA. And then also, too, it shifts now that ultimately, from what I've been hearing, this is now Luka Dončic's team, not LeBron. And I think initially what I heard in terms of, there were some reports that LeBron clearly wanted to leave. That's why they put out that press clipping or a statement stating the fact that he is going to stay there this year. But I think ultimately he's going to come up for a contract extension. And, it's now the time to start shifting and building that team around Luka. So it's still a lot of work in progress. But make no mistake, this is Luka Dončic's team. And if I had to say right now who won, I think both of them won on different levels. The Lakers now got a relatively young star, global superstar there that can now shift the balance of power, and they're going to have the Laker fans. Laker Nation is all happy. And in Dallas, you bring in AD, combined with what they got there. Yeah, they can still compete, and rightfully so. They're going to be able to compete in the West. So I wouldn't look at this and say one team lost, another team won. I think they both won, but different circumstances.
They won.
Can I jump in real quick? So, and just to kind of take a quick poll, right? So, CL, if you're Nico Harrison, do you do this deal? Just yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Ricky, if you're Nico Harrison, do you do this deal? No. Gerald?
Yes, if I want to keep my job.
And
this is a business. Hey, remember, it's not always all on the court and be in front of the camera.
That's what I want to plug into that so much more. I think we have to understand really and truly that while most of us, I wouldn't have done the deal either, right? If I'm Nico Harrison, I'm not trading Luka for AD. But I don't know if I want to go through the bidding war. You're also in a season where Jimmy Butler, who we'll talk about, is now becoming a malcontent. So do you want that situation on your hand with a star who's even that much more powerful? And then he's going to tell you, I'm not going to go to this team. I'm not going to resign with that team if he gets a wind of it. To me, Nico bet it. He bet on AD. He said, this is the guy. And if you're looking canvas in the NBA, and I would challenge all of you here on this call right now to say, who is truly the best two-way player in the NBA right now? And your only answers can be AD or Jonas. and that is it. So if you can get a guy who can give you 30, can give you 15, 20 rebounds, can get you 2-3 blocks, shut down and guard 1 through 5, There's only 2 guys in the NBA who can do that right now, and they got one of them in Dallas. So I know a lot of us want to besmirch the name of Nico Harrison, and I'm not here to defend him. Like I said, I wouldn't have done the deal, but I can understand the situation that he was in and why he might have gone the way that he did, because this could have got really ugly with somebody like Luka finding out, oh, you're shopping me, bro? Let me tell you what's going to go down, and it becomes nasty after that. Ricky, tell me something.
Let me just say this. Let me just add this. One thing, let's not overlook the fact is that Nike is a major sponsor and of the league. So let's make sure we understand. AD had dealings with Nico Harrison when he was at Nike. So there was a strong relationship where Nico Harrison appeased the Dallas Mavericks management as well as his former employers in Nike. Win-win all across the board, as far as I'm concerned, with Nico Harrison.
Yeah, I want to chime in something real quick. I know, Ricky, you were going to come in. So the one thing that I think also has to be looked at is the caliber of the athlete and the player and where they are in their stages of their career. And I'm going to say this because I'm just giving it from my personal perspective. Luka Dončić, I love Luka. Sean knows this. I was one of the few people that was saying I think Luka's ascension is going to be far greater than that of what people were talking about regarding Trae Young, and that the Dallas Mavericks are probably going to wind up winning out on this because of the type of player that he is and the maturity that he exudes. But what I also recognize too, as an international player, he's of a different ilk and a different breed. He isn't like Dirk Nowitzki, right? I think he truly believes that he would be greater than the market that serves him in where he was with Dallas. And I think you could see that in moments and glimpses at certain points, that while the Dallas Mavericks were successful, they were preparing for the fact that Luka Dončić was probably going to be far greater than that not just the fan base, but just the market in and of itself. Now, I'm saying the Lakers have to do right by this, because the type of player that Luka Dončić is, you're betting that his style of basketball and his play is moving the Lakers into that next. Like, people want to harken back, but LeBron coming back, we're getting Lakers Showtime. You can't be talking like this now, especially with Luka Dončić, because his style of play doesn't exude Showtime unless you're going to figure out a way to get him to want to play at a pace that is reminiscent of what we think of. So that's what I'm saying. I think Pelinka is betting on the idea that he knows that Luka Dončić can control the narrative, especially with what people want to believe as far as the greatness that the Lakers have had with the type of stars that they've had. And that's something that I don't think you could find in other markets. That's seldom that you can find with certain players. And I'm going to be intrigued by seeing this, because it's telling me that, yes, you're moving away from LeBron. You're moving away from the LeBron era, the LeBron style, the LeBron mystique, and you're saying this is going to be about what Luka Dončić brings to the table. And he's going to have to convince that LA fan base that his style is going to produce multiple runs at finals, multiple championship opportunities. I would never have been saying this a couple of years ago if I was only talking about the Luka that hasn't produced what he's been producing so far. But it's kind of like once people get access to the gauntlet, right? To you know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to be Thanos once they know that they can snap their fingers at it. And I feel like that's where we're at this moment in time with Luka Dončić and his opportunity with the Los Angeles Lakers. Ricky, you can chime in now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, a lot of good stuff there. I do want to take it back to the Dallas point, and this is just me. This is just me thinking out loud. If I were running the Dallas Mavericks, an organization that has won one championship in the history of the Dallas Mavericks, has had, excuse my language, one bona fide all-time superstar that is known for being a Dallas Maverick, and I could be wrong, but please correct me if I am, the nerve of this organization to say, we're going to pull the plug on a future Hall of Famer. I think we are all in agreement. Luka is on his way to being a Hall of Famer if his knees don't explode, or if he just can't stay out of a Golden Corral. He's on his way. Championships are mandatory in Los Angeles. Absolutely. Are championships mandatory in Dallas for the Dallas Mavericks, who are having rumors about even being up out of there to go to Vegas? When did this become the Boston Celtics? When did this become the Miami Heat, where if you're not an A-tier player, an A-tier locked in on both sides of the ball, we just don't think you can fit the mold? I'm sorry. How many defensive teams has Dirk been on in his career? What are we like? Hey, this is me, maybe a Lakers bias, Lakers exceptionalism. If you're not running for a championship, you're dead in the water. But the nerve of the Dallas Mavericks, and I think the fan base probably has felt like this when I read it on the timeline. This was their god. This was their guy for this era of basketball. And now they are looking at, okay, we do have Kyrie, who's in his 30s. We do have AD, who's in his 30s. We do have Klay Thompson, who's in his 30s. This could be cool right now, but we just gave up the future. Maybe I'm tripping, but I think that organizations that don't have a nice war chest of championships / finals appearances. Oh yeah, when the last time Dallas went to the finals? Last year. And they got rid of they cash cow. And I get it. If this is time to just run this little era of this core out, and we'll see Klay off into the sunset. We'll see Kyrie off to the sunset. We'll pay AD a bazillion dollars for the next 3 years, and then he'll go off into the sunset, and then we'll hit the reset button. Okay. But I think it's insanity that they think that Luka did not live up to whatever standards that they have in Dallas, Texas.
But Ricky, one thing I want to say, and I think that's the initial reaction on the surface, but just keep in mind, also too, put yourself in that position of all of us being owners. Are you comfortable giving a guy $300-some million that he's going to have in that sort of space of that contract, making somewhere, I think it's like $70-80 million a year? Are you comfortable with a guy that has shown a history of some issues in terms of weight and all that stuff? See, there's a lot behind the scenes that we're not privy to see. You know, look, he's a bona fide superstar, hands down. But that's a big gamble. And like I said before, they left it upon Nico Harrison to say, you make that call. Nico's already gotten it wrong with Steph Curry messing up the presentation when he was at Nike. You know, so I mean, again, it comes down to not only the fact is that it's the talent. Obviously, that's undeniable. But this was more or less a money thing where this guy was going to be a super max guy that if he's struggling now and get that money, you locked in and now you just stuck. And it's a tough. And I mean, again, it might go differently, but I think more than anything, you know, they not just poo-poo the fool and stuff like that. There was more things that we're not just privy to see that were happening behind the scenes. And that's not a knock on him. But yeah, it's tough. And I think if you sit down and having that position and saying, hey, am I willing to pay this guy that type of money and we're going to stay at that level? I don't know if I would have did it myself.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, a whole lot of money. But the alternative is you're pretty much telling your fan base, yeah, we're probably we'd rather not pay anyone this type of money right now until we feel like someone like that Elcast walks into the room, which just does not happen. I think absolutely, from an ownership standpoint, you got to make that decision. Are you riding with the international superstar that's going to be top 5 in jersey sales for the next 10 years and is going to have his name next to a lot of records and it's going to say Dallas Mavericks next to it? If that's not worth, marketing background, if that's not worth that, I get it. That's a whole lot of more zeros than I think I can even count, right? Yeah. But it's tough, man. Luka is he's not a small market guy. He comes from a lot of folks over the pond that are backing him.
And I think, and to kind of end on this particular point before, we transition, I think that's going to be the outlier question. You know what I'm saying? Is there a way to contain that kind of stardom? You don't have it homegrown like Jokic, homegrown like Giannis. Doncic came in bringing the world to the American basketball stage and he hasn't let his foot off the gas since then. And I think if you are the Dallas Mavericks, you have to weigh in on whether or not you would still be in a position to control the narrative. And if you wait too long, you're going to wind up losing out anyway. You know what I'm saying? And so that, to me, I think is one of the things that we still have to figure out. And to your point, Gerald, there could be still things that'll be revealed or things that'll be uncovered as, you know, we continue to move forward and see where both of these guys are and what they're doing for their respective franchises. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Coming up, we still got to talk about whether or not the Butler really did it. We got the Butler trade going on. And we're also going to talk about the kind of trade, like what trade are we not talking about that we believe may actually have ramifications on what the outcome is going to be for the remainder of the NBA season. You do not want to miss out. My man Ricky Barnes, Gerald Brown, my man Shaw, all of us are in it to win it. Stay with us. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw, don't go anywhere. We're back. Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast with our special guest, Ricky Barnes from the Late Night Lake Show, and our man, Heavy in the Paint, Gerald Brown joining us, and we are weighing in on the NBA trade deadline. As always, be sure to get at my man Shaw, Shaw Sports NBA, get at me at Game Face Lee, the show's Twitter handle, NBA Baseline, and be sure to go to www.19mediagroup.com to not only check out the Baseline, but also to check out the Late Night Lake Show and also Heavy in the Paint. This is what we do. This is family. We are running the content streets out there, and of course, it can't be done when you have these type of phenomenal video / podcasters weighing in on everything that's going on right now with the NBA trade deadline. So let's get right into it. The other big, you know what I'm saying, sonic trade heard around the world, Jimmy Butler getting moved to the Golden State Warriors. All right, Ricky, I'm going to start with you. Needle pusher or just pushing needles?
Yeah. I'm going the latter. I think this is pushing needles. But no, I mean, Jimmy, if he turns it on, stays healthy, there'll be a real dangerous playing team, right? I think right now, man, this era of Warriors basketball and what they're trying to accomplish, and during the deadline, I think we kind of saw it was a little desperation. Like they knew that they had to come back with something. What's the Denzel meme? I'm leaving with something, right?
That move of desperation, Ricky, is move to save face. Like they cannot basically stand by, regardless of whether or not something did happen with the Phoenix Suns moving players like KD or maybe Bradley Beal, but more about the Los Angeles Lakers, doing something, that it was necessary that the Golden State Warriors get in the mix. And especially since the Golden State Warriors have been kind of like out there shopping, trying to get something done to get nothing done. And then your arch rivals goes out there and pulls a deal like this. Is it basically like, bully ball, with the executives saying we got to get something happening, even if we don't think that this in the long term is really what's best for the organization and what's best for Steph Curry?
I'll say this. If there was an emergency button behind a glass little case, they was already standing by the button, right? By having Steph Curry essentially rotting a season away as he starts to age and get a little bit older, they felt it by their own fan base that this was, if they're going to waste another Steph Curry season, heads are going to roll. I feel like the Lakers going and turning around and getting Luka, they broke the glass and pounded the button. They had to figure out something, or it would have been blatantly obvious that we are failing Steph Curry. And that's what they signed up for. They're married together until Steph says, I don't want to do this no more. And Jimmy Butler enters in the building, not necessarily the Warriors-centric type of player. I guess you could say he's a souped-up Andrew Wiggins, but Andrew Wiggins wasn't necessarily a Warriors type of player. It's a stretch at the least, right? And desperation at the most. So I think they'll be interesting. I can't wait for the Jimmy Draymond content, but I think we pushing needles to answer your question.
All right. What's up, Shaw?
For me, it's very much what Ricky said. It screams desperation, thirst even. This is not a great fit. And I think Miami actually kind of comes out okay in it as well. Like, this isn't probably not the haul that they wanted, but hey, they get off the money, they get off a malcontent who wasn't going to be contributing to them anyway. And you can plug Wiggins in, and hey, now you actually have somebody who's willing to contribute. It just needed to go. And one of the last points that Ricky talked about with Draymond, this is truly the interesting part for me about the player empowerment era and what you value, what players bring to your organization holistically. The Warriors have 4 rings because of Draymond Green. They also have a lot of, let's say, stuff that they would rather not have dealt with because of Draymond Green. And one of those things now at the twilight of this run is now Draymond Green is the primary reason KD did not want to come back to this organization. And say what you want, they want a chip and all of that. But now I think you're starting, like, those chickens have come home to roost, as they say. And so it's a situation now where, hey, they'll be plucky. They'll have some moments, but I don't see this as a team that's a legitimate threat, in the Western Conference, not for this year or the next. And had they been able to do whatever they wanted to do in the summer, and we've talked a lot about this on the show, when they wanted Markkanen and they tried to get PG and all those other guys, but it's the weirdest thing about this trade deadline or all trade deadlines is the value of players, how fastly it changes. Podziemski and Moody and Kuminga, we can't touch those guys, and they're franchise. And now it's like, all right, you know what I mean? Do you still feel the same way? Even a guy like we talked about with Mark Williams going into the summer, people are like, yo, I don't want that guy because he's always hurt, but he's had a great stretch the last 10 games. It's like, oh shit, that dude's dope. Let's make a move. It's always perception. Zach LaVine, we'll talk about Sacramento. You couldn't give that guy away last year. And now all of a sudden, he becomes a center part of a deal. The trade market, the value of our players changes so drastically, but also the culture of your team plays an impact as well to where teams or players say, rather, do they say they want to go? And a guy like KD, who is a Hall of Famer, doesn't want to go back to a situation where maybe he'd make them title contenders. Maybe that's still a stretch even in that too, but he doesn't want to go back because of some of the situations there. Gerald, tap in for me, brother. What do you think about this whole Butler-Wiggins conversation?
Very head scratching and really just doesn't add up. Like Ricky was talking about, pressing and breaking the glass and pressing the button. Look, we were told, and basically we were shown by the Golden State Warriors, their reluctance to sign Klay Thompson back, give him a number in terms of just to show him the value. So at that point, it was kind of setting the table that inevitably, look, it was the end of the run. We get it. It's over. What a great run. Nobody could be mad at the ownership group. They have spent tons of money and the luxury tax penalties to really continue to keep this thing going. Then all of a sudden, you don't re-sign Jonathan Kuminga, right? When you had an opportunity. So you give the money to Moody, right? And so now it's kind of like, okay, well, Kuminga is going to be that caveat. That's that carrot that's going to they're going to dangle out there and then get. And obviously, when the trade happened for Doncic, I really didn't believe the whole situation where it was like they're trying to get LeBron and KD. I thought that was clearly a marketing ploy on their part to really just, again, let their fan base know that they're trying. And honestly, like, Ricky had alluded to, yeah, it's kind of been a situation that when Steph Curry signed that extension in the offseason, he said he wants to be there in his career there. It's really great. But he also alluded to the fact is that I'm accustomed to playing for championships, playing meaningful games. So now as you watch this team languish around 500, losing games, it just recently lost, it wasn't a team. They had to do something because I think inevitably the tea leaves were all there that quietly Steph Curry goes to management in the offseason, do a KG to Minnesota type of situation where it's like, hey, I want to be traded. Get me out of here. And that's where the panic perhaps set in because, look, you alluded to it like Shaw, you couldn't lose Draymond Green, right? As much as you want to lose him, you can't because him and Steph Curry are tied at the hip. You lose Draymond Green, now you force Steph Curry to now be a point guard rather than a guy that can roam because Draymond can be that facilitator, bring the ball up, do all those things, especially at this stage of Steph Curry's career. Now you bring in Jimmy Butler, who I'm kind of surprised. They panicked and gave him 2 years, $120 million. It was like, wait a minute, what is the message the league is sending? You can act a damn fool and then still get paid? I cannot understand that at all. And all that they have done is just put this money into a team and in a player that clearly doesn't fit, because guess what? Newsflash. The Mavericks have size. The Lakers have size. The Nuggets have they have Jokic. Their size. Minnesota has size. You don't have size, and small ball will not be effective. Excuse me. Oklahoma City Thunder has size. You don't have that small ball effectiveness this time around. So I don't know what this is. It's just kind of a sense like, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and start the ending of it. No, we're gonna add some more. It's like an ending of a movie. They're showing the credits and be like, we're gonna give you some more of the movie. It just doesn't make sense, and I'm really baffled because they haven't gotten better, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, like the Marvel, you know what I'm saying, when you're hanging out in a movie theater and you know that they're gonna add a little bit of that, you know what I'm saying, we're gonna wedge you in onto the next scene or whatever's coming next. You know what I mean? Like,
you see KD's hand coming out of the rubble. Like, is that Kevin Durant with his Warriors championship ring? Yeah.
Exactly.
Didn't happen.
But Clay, I want to be back. I'm coming back.
Right. Yeah.
Kali, Warren Shaw, my man, Ricky Barnes, Gerald Brown joining us here. Baseline NBA Podcast Special Edition, discussing the NBA trade deadline. I know that there's probably one or two others two other moves that we want to definitely weigh in on and stuff like that. Something I did want to kind of bring up, and it's points that you, Ricky, and Gerald have made, and also Shaw have made, as it pertains to the era of the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry. I just find it pretty amazing that what they did in moving getting Jimmy Butler and moving Andrew Wiggins. The best that we've seen of Andrew Wiggins was that year in 22, right? There was a level of aggressiveness in him. There was a level of assertiveness in him. And a lot of that changed after the championship was won. I'm not putting this just on Andrew Wiggins, but what I'm saying is that one of the problems that I've seen, and clearly it looks like the Los Angeles Lakers are partly addressing that when they did this deal to get Luka Dončić. If they believe Luka Dončić is their future, is their guy, right? He's gonna exude that. He is going to show that. It's going to come out there when he's out there on the basketball court. That's the problem that I find with the Golden State Warriors, is they have been kind of half foot in, half foot out the water about this, because that's not what you see in Steph Curry. If you notice, Steph Curry's numbers, while they look all nice and shiny and everything, they don't exude the level of aggressiveness during that stretch of dominance in which you can clearly see Steph wants to take things over. And part of the problem that I'm seeing right now is that they can't find somebody who's going to be able to take that step, that who's going to be a part of that, who's going to be like, I'm ready to take over whatever is going on with Steph. Regardless of what we want to say, if he's on the back end of his career, anything like that, Draymond Green is not that answer. Klay Thompson would have never been that answer. Andrew Wiggins is not that answer. Jonathan Kuminga isn't that answer. Nobody on that Golden State Warriors roster. And ultimately, if the Warriors want to be serious about winning, they're going to need to have somebody there that dominates a particular position or a particular aspect to what makes the Warriors the great team that they are. And the one thing that I will say is this, I'm going to end it on this part of it. Man, if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm just exhausted. Right? I'm just exhausted. Like either I'm not fitting in, or you're giving me people that just ain't fitting in. You know what I'm saying? And so now we're doing this dance again. We're asking Steve Kerr to make magic out of mole. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, again, this is where I think things go bad for the Golden State Warriors and our belief that they're going to be in it. But I said to Shaw at the beginning of the year, the Golden State Warriors will be hanging around. They're going to be hanging around the play-in situation just out of sheer fact that you've got Steph Curry, and they'll probably have some quality players on that roster as well too. But whether or not we buy into them being that team that figured out a way to get it, that chip at 22 and had this decade of dominance, I think all of that is gone because they just look like a tired basketball team that no longer wants to do that dance.
And time comes for us all. That's what it boils down to. And sometimes you hold on too long. And I think the Warriors fan base, if Steph were to whisper in the ear, Lake Up and Dunleavy and company, then, that would be a sad time. But for right now, they're going to ride out at least another 2 years, maybe even 3 to the end of Butler's extension. And from my understanding, is Butler, Curry, and Draymond, all their contracts will end in that third year. So we have 3 more years to watch the Warriors languish or try and scrap to what was kind of yesteryear. Let's transfer on here now. Do a couple of quick hitters. De'Aaron Fox ends up landing in San Antonio with the great Wemby. Let's kick it to you, G. We on the baseline, we've been talking about this. Not so much the Fox aspect, but we've been like, I want to accelerate the Wemby timeline. Like I like put something on this because I want to see him get into competitive basketball outside of the Olympics. And I was like, if you can get another star, they got adults in the room with Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes. Devin Vassell's having a good season. They figured out exactly what Keldon Johnson is and what he isn't. More importantly, Sohan as well. And then I was like, if somebody becomes available, like they should do it. I'm surprised they actually did. I want to get your thoughts, Gerald. Then you can tap in Ricky as well too. Do you like the move of Fox this early? Do you think the Spurs should have been more patient?
I'll say this. I was surprised, and clearly this is something that I heard through the grapevines from people in the NBA. Management was very, very upset. Think about this, guys. Luka Dončić and De'Aaron Fox were 2 guys that were already positioned to sign Supermax deals. In the case we already talked about at length about Doncic, we know why. De'Aaron Fox turned down the Supermax. Now, there's this belief that he's going to be able to get that in San Antonio, which I would be surprised. But then again, you know what? We've seen a lot of things that are say, you know what? You just never say never. But to him going to San Antonio, a small market franchise, when you got Victor Wembanyama, he's definitely Supermax guy. He left it potentially he's going to lose out like $100-something million. A difference in terms of that. I just don't see how that he makes that up. Again, why you couldn't win in Sacramento, especially when the fact of the matter is if you're a Supermax player, they're paying you. Now, him going there to San Antonio, look, it looks good on paper, but I think the biggest thing, and you mentioned this about the sort of maturation process and maybe accelerating it of Victor Wembanyama. He's going to have to get stronger. He's going to have to be in a position where obviously the growth and development of his body, we would hope it ends up kind of like Jonas. Because I'm honest, I'm tired of seeing a 7'4" guy languishing out there on the perimeter, shooting a ton of threes. But that's what he can do only right now because of his body frame. But hopefully, we don't know. And I think that's the best thing the NBA did, if you will, wink, wink, in putting him in San Antonio. So now he can grow at a nice, steadily pace without the pressure of the media. So, on the paper, it just remains to be seen. They're still a young team. And look, the West is super, super loaded. I don't know how much of a difference it will make within the next 2 to maybe 3 years.
I really appreciate G you calling out Wemby's volume of outside shots. I'm starting to feel like I'm the old head on the timeline when I complain about how much 3-point shooting is happening with my Giants on the court. Like post players is where my bread and butter is. It's where I spend a lot of my time breaking down film, and it's infuriating. There's no other way to put about it, that he's top 5 3-point attempts on the season, and he is barely able to jump to need to dunk. So, but to your point, which is well taken, the frame dictates what he can and can't do, right? And that you look around, there's a lot of big boys in the league, and while they are not Wemby as far as size, they want longevity out of they franchise big man. So, point well taken there. I do love the De'Aaron Fox pickup. I think Fox is one of those guys that will continue to raise his game in situations where he's playing more important basketball. Yes, the Kings have had a couple of playoffs series over the years, but he really is leaving that organization, and let him tell it, with a bad taste in his mouth. He's already, on the timeline, just ambiguously tweeting, see, it wasn't just me that, maybe that was the problem. He really did not want to be in in Sacramento, and San Antonio being on his hit list of places he wanted to go. You don't see that too often with the young superstars of tomorrow, right? As a destination. That's a testament to Wemby. Obviously, I think that's a testament to the franchise's history, and Pop, get well soon. Hopeful that he'll be able to coach Fox directly. But I'm looking at these West standings, and yes, the West is loaded up top, and those first top 6 seeds, right, are kind of teams that aren't really going to fall into that play-in game. But the Spurs are 2 games out of the play-in. The Spurs are 2 games out of the 8th seed. I think this can get kind of interesting if Wemby, turns it up a notch, and this newfound energy that the roster has by bringing in a bona fide young up-and-coming star in Fox, I think they could get a little dangerous. Who doesn't, especially in the NBA and Adam Silver, who doesn't want to see Wemby in the play-in this season? It makes for good content, that's for sure. And shout out De'Aaron Fox. He was my first NBA interview, so I'm always
that's what's up.
Very good. All right, fellas. I want to kind of transition into what you guys thought would be the trade that nobody's going to be talking about, but could actually move the needle when we get towards the end of this year we get to the end of the season. I know that there's definitely one Shaw has his eye on that we haven't had an opportunity to speak of, but I want to start with you on that one, Gerald. Is there a particular trade that you found very intriguing? You're saying, you know what? This is going to have some ramifications on the way we're going to be looking at, the upcoming NBA playoffs run.
I think what Cleveland did, you're bringing in DeAndre Hunter, and look, they struggled they're struggling getting to the finish line of the first half of the season. And you add DeAndre Hunter that's in that mix, a guy that obviously very good wing defender, can score. I like what they did in some regards. And, it was kind of like, like you said before, the knee-jerk reaction and stuff like that. But really on the surface, what Cleveland did, I think what they did right off the top really stands out to me.
Yeah, sure. I blame the Celtics. We pushed them over the edge. We forced them to do this.
There could be, not truth, but that last game before the deadline, they do struggle with the wing stuff, and Hunter becomes available. Not really sure what Atlanta's actually doing. They have all kinds of machinations going on with where their picks go. So like some weird behavior going on there, but yeah, and I agree with you, G. Cleveland was definitely one of my picks there too. Before we let Ricky kind of tap in, I'll veer off because I might have to eat some crow here. I don't think so, but I'll put it out there. I've been pretty pessimistic about this Clippers team for the majority part of the season, and because I just don't believe that they'll be healthy. I just don't. Why would I? I love Zubac. I love that guy. I think he's an amazing center. He's having a breakout season. Could be considered for, most improved, all the things, right? But what they did today, and getting Bogdanovic, into that lineup as well too, added some other bench depth, front court depth, early in the week, getting off of Tucker and Mann and Bones Highland and just all of that stuff. Got rid of Kevin Porter Jr., which I thought was questionable for a lot of reasons as well too. Listen, again, it's always the if. But I'll just say, let me leave it there. I think the Clippers did good today. We'll see if they can stay healthy to see if that good actually comes to some level of fruition. One of your sleeper picks or sleeper trades, Ricky, before we kind of close things out.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, mine was the De'Aaron Fox trade to San Antonio. I think that's something like what we just talked about. It's going to raise the level of Wemby's impact on the floor. They're going to make some noise in the playing game. But one trade that I woke up to that I just was not expecting, Brandon Ingram in Canada. While I don't think it's going to make much impact on this season, right? Is he up there to stay? Like, if not, then this is going to be a fun offseason for BI. Heading into unrestricted free agency. So the pieces that are shaping up to being on the block this upcoming summer, Mr. Kevin Durant included, since his name was dangled out there by his ownership group sacrilegiously. It's going to make for a fun summer, right? But no, but my click the picks, that Cavs trade, man, that was real.
That's
that
what
was
they needed
real for sure.
Yeah, that's what they needed right there, man. And to touch in on your Raptors point too, like those parts don't fit. Like it just doesn't, and they don't have enough shooting. So I don't know if that's going to be the final landing spot for Ingram there too. I thought that was perplexing for sure. Your thoughts, C, I'll kind of kick it to you. Sacramento, they did add LaVine. They did add Valančiūnas, who was bantered about. He finally gets moved or whatever like that. So obviously they lose Fox. LaVine and DeRozan team up yet again. I'm sure DeRozan's probably like, bro,
We back.
But your thoughts on Sacramento? Do they have what it takes now under Doug Christie to make a run here in the Western Conference with their new parts?
I mean, they definitely have a good roster. All right. I think that with Sabonis and I think with Valančiūnas, I think that was, to me, that's the bigger part of that particular trade more so than Zach LaVine. The reason why I say that is because now Sabonis can truly play that 4. I think he is best well served playing the 4 spot.
You think they'll start the two of them?
I think so. I think Doug Christie likes to see that kind of style of basketball now that you have, because if you really think about it, you don't have De'Aaron Fox running the point per se, right? Let's just assume in that particular space.
But hold on, let me tap in real quick. So then that means Murray or Monk are going to the bench. Murray. And I know, and Monk has played well as a starter. He's also gives them another ball handler.
Yeah.
So it's tough if you start Valančiūnas and Sabonis, but I'm here for it. Keep going. I'm sorry. That's the process.
And fine. I mean, I have no problem with you questioning. Let's put it like this, Shaw. Let's say that Murray is still the starter to begin with. I don't think it will be long before if we start seeing that the Kings are struggling and Sabonis is really not vibing with that set, that they do go with the Valančiūnas. I think that they should immediately go with the Valančiūnas thing. And this is nothing against Murray, but if you're bringing Zach LaVine and you have LaVine and you have DeRozan, what do you have with Murray? Murray is not he's not proven to be a consistent guy that's going to go down there on the blocks. He's out there to space and shoot. Right? One Ricky's favorite type players. He's out there just, long, lengthy shooting the 3. I can tell you this right now. They are not winning any games in the Western Conference against the likes of the Oklahoma City Thunder, against the likes of the Dallas Mavericks now, against the likes of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're not going to be able to win those type of basketball games if Murray is not going to be down there and get Brody on cats down in the blocks. You can't put that on Sabonis, who's obviously struggled and has compromised his offensive game more often times than not because of the commitment he has to make with the bigs that he plays against in the Western Conference. I think Doug Christie probably understands that and knows that when it comes to those matchups, Valančiūnas is gonna have a far bigger impact than worry about whether or not offensively they're gonna have guys that can get off, especially if you've got 3 guys that can score the basketball already in LaVine and DeRozan and Sabonis.
Death
Gerald,
to small ball. I'm with you, Cal. Death to small ball.
Get here.
Three folks on the court at all times, 6'8" and taller.
Hey, Ricky, I listen, man. When we're done with this show, man, we need to hit up Golden Corral.
Yeah, as long as I don't see Luka ass in there, I'm all good, man. We all good.
They may already be putting up the Luka special. You know what I'm saying?
He in the Hollywood. They gonna get him right. They gonna get him right in Hollywood. You better believe that.
He eating tofu now.
Luka Zempic. What in the world?
Before we wrap, I'm going to say one last thing. One guy who I'm surprised was not moved, and that's Vucevic in Chicago. Same, quite not sure what the Bulls are doing there as well. Obviously, Ricky, you're Chicago native.
They have all the guards now, man. They have 6 guards in their rotation. It's the craziest thing in the world.
It's a wild situation, but I think, as you're alluding to, this is setting up for an amazing summer. A lot more intrigue and a lot of stuff. Like as we get into the NBA draft and the race for Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey and all of that, we could start to see even more big names kind of thrown around here, brother. Like this, it's going to be a wild time, man. I've enjoyed this conversation. I want to thank you both for gracing the Baseline NBA podcast. Ricky's first time and definitely will not be the last. G, you know what it is. We've seen you so many times and you've been so gracious to me and to Sia over the years. This has been a great NBA trade deadline special.
And this will definitely not be the last, man. I love this energy. We definitely we got to pull this thing together, man, because there's going to be a lot more craziness and chaos happening even before we get to the off season. That's going to require a special set of skills that both you and my man Gerald, Ricky, can only be able to bring together to the fold. So that is definitely what's on tap, my brothers.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. Definitely really appreciate it, man. Ricky, great meeting you, and thank you so much for being a part of this. This is home, man, and we definitely got to do this again, especially if LeBron ends up in blue and orange in the Garden.
Settle down, bro.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, man's man. Like I was about to say we got to do some collabs and stuff. Now we getting crazy.
They got pause on that.
But no, appreciate y'all having me on, man. This is the 19 family, man. So it's supposed to flow just like it is. So
yes, indeed.
Appreciate y'all.
Once again, everybody, make sure that you check out our man Ricky Barnes' Late Night Lake Show and my man Gerald Brown, the OG, Heavy in the Paint, 19 Media Group, Callie Warrenshaw, Baseline NBA Podcast. We appreciate everybody for hopping on board, and we'll catch up with you next time.